All right, welcome back to the My Sugar-Free Journey podcast. I am your host, Aaron, again. And today we've got a special episode for you today. In fact, we were just talking, I think this is probably going to turn into a two-parter. But today we are talking to Carrie Brown. So Carrie Brown is a ex-pastry chef, cookbook author, recipe developer, freelance photographer. If you kind of followed along the same path as me, you know her as the Keto Evangelist Kitchen. That was the first place that I ever heard about her, was these little segments at the end of the Keto Evangelist Kitchen podcast that were it was fascinating because I don't know that I had ever really heard anyone talk about food with as much insight, with as much, really getting into the nuts and bolts of how food works, especially, from a kitchen, preparing the food perspective, as Carrie did. And so I became a big fan of her through that, and tried a couple of her keto ice cream recipes, loved them, thought she was just doing a fantastic job. And then I heard her speak about some mental health issues that led to her getting into keto. And I thought, my goodness, I've got to get this woman on and talk to her myself, because I just thought it was all so amazing. And she is now just, we'll get into some of this a little later, but she's now on the Two Keto Dudes podcast permanently, which is pretty cool to see her there. So Carrie Brown, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm really honored, and I'm really happy to be here.
Fantastic. I'm glad that you're here. So, man, you've got a lot of story to tell. So let's start off with, who was Carrie Brown before keto?
Carrie Brown before keto was mostly depressed. I like to explain it that I was born depressed, and I spent all of my life up until 3.5 years ago being depressed in one form or another. And when I say depressed, I'm not talking about what I would term situational depression. I didn't grow up in a disadvantaged household. I had two parents that are still married. They had enough money to put a roof over my head and clothes and food and all the basic things. I was afforded a good education in England. So I had all the things. So there was nothing that I should have been depressed about. My parents didn't beat me. My brother was not awful to me. So when I say a situation depression, I mean a depression that can be tied to something happening that made you depressed or super sad, like maybe a relative dying, somebody that you loved, or a pet dying, or losing your job, or something like that. So this wasn't a situational depression. This was, what I'm talking about is a clinical depression, i.e. a depression that has no basis in fact. You just are. It's just something that you can't control, and it's not linked to anything specific that you can say, oh, that's why I'm depressed. Did that make sense?
Yeah, what does that feel like? Like, I mean, I've been sad before, but I've never had clinical depression. What is it? What does that feel like to someone who deals with that?
In my case, and I would say that there's probably 100 different clinically depressed people would describe it 100 slightly different ways, but for me it was very little feeling, so kind of numb, no joy in anything, but also as a young child, I couldn't make sense of it. I always felt that way, and I knew there was something wrong with me because of the way people around me reacted to me. So I was constantly being told that I wasn't good enough. I was constantly being told that to, just get over it. I was constantly being told to cheer up. And I was confused by that. So I knew there was something wrong, but because I'd always felt like that, it was normal to me, and I didn't know any different. So I kind of grew up being confused, knowing that something wasn't quite right, but not understanding what it was, not having a name for it, and being like extra sad and frustrated that I didn't know how to fix whatever it was that everyone was wrong with me. So, but it felt, I guess it would be lack of joy, lack of feeling, and just this sense of walking around with a dark cloud over your head that you couldn't make sense of and that you had no control over. And no matter what you tried, you know, you would go do all the things that people, oh, go serve in the soup kitchen, or go help someone else, or go do this, or go do that. Nothing that I did ever made that dark cloud feeling go away. And it didn't matter what I did. I never felt joy.